Yay.
Hello, colleagues. Hello, colleagues. Please. Or hearing.
Sorry, I have to use the headphones and the microphone. Hello, colleagues. It is 4 p.m. here in Bonn, and so good morning or good afternoon, maybe some good evening or maybe good night. And we're going to start the second session of the first day of the 17 lead reviews meeting. And for that, I would like to invite Mr. Donald Cooper, that you know very well, Director of the No-Name Transparency Divisions of the UNFCCC, to open the lead reviews meeting. Please, Don, take the floor.
Thank you very much, Vitor. It is a pleasure to have this opportunity to welcome you all to the latest iteration of the lead reviewers meeting for the GHG inventories. Also to welcome our family and friends back to this version of Bonn, the virtual version. It is quite an extraordinary achievement over the last 5 or 6 months that you and the team in the Secretariat and the countries who are involved have undertaken. It is amazing to see the reaction, the dedication, and the ability to innovate, be creative, and find practical solutions to address our pressing ongoing work. I have to offer my sincere thanks and to let you know how awed we are by the way in which everybody have risen to the occasion. Many of you have participated in reviews of various types, whether they are RED+, greenhouse gas inventories for the future, but more pressingly, biennial reports and the biennial update reports. The willingness of experts working from their countries while still carrying on their regular jobs, carrying them out from home offices, interacting and engaging with your families at the same time, and dealing with the everyday effort, pleasure, and challenge of simply living. You have managed to integrate this work into all of the other things that you do. And I also have to say that just like many members of the Secretariat, they have been almost bragging about how they've had to interact at 3 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, whatever it takes in order to be able to gain that common time zone from many of you from all around the world. It is really an impressive effort. Between all of us, we have managed to keep the process not only on track, and enhance it. We have come up with many new strategies and approaches that are likely to be utilized in the future no matter what the new normal looks like. Some of these are going to be exercised here during this meeting, and I don't mean that the meeting is being held virtually, but the way in which we address presentations, the way in which we discuss matters, how we get involved, all of these have evolved, and you have evolved with them. Normally, it is said that during the work period in international agencies, things move slowly. Change comes slowly. But in this case, it came extremely rapidly, well thought out, and delivered to a very high standard. So all of you are to be congratulated for your participation in this. This Lead Reviewers meeting, the fact that it's being held virtually, is not the really extraordinary thing. The extraordinary thing is the way in which everybody have found a way in order to gain the insights and guidance from your group, which has over the last 20 plus years given us a hugely successful platform on which to build the transparency regime in the future. It is not just that the process of greenhouse gas inventory reviews was successful over the last years. It has been exceptionally successful, so much so that all of the processes in transparency have been built on it. All of the processes, ERs, BRs, RED+, and the Enhanced Transparency Framework have been built on it. And the guidance and the direction, the insight, the expertise that is required to do that came from your group. So your efforts have definitely changed the world. Unfortunately, from those who give much, much is expected. The amount of delivery that you have presented to the world means that we are all looking to you to continue that delivery. We have the next round of reviews coming up in the second half of this year, and we're looking for your guidance on how best to carry them out. What things function well, what innovation we can bring to the table, and how best we can continue this level of success. But more than that, we are beginning that process of considering what the Enhanced Transparency Framework process will look like. Parties continue to deliberate, but they, I am sure, will be coming up with a lot of guidance on what the process should be with decisions to come in the future. However, turning those decisions into reality needs the guidance and expertise and the experience that you bring to the table. So while we will be primarily discussing how we will carry out the next round of reviews, how we will improve them, how we will build on the past successes, we will also be asking, how do we bring this into our new Enhanced Transparency Framework, which will be here a lot quicker than we might think. As early as 2022, we will need to have serious guidance on how to implement the decisions that the parties will be taking over the next few years. The discussion on what they should look like and how we should make the current process begin to move in the direction that those decisions will give us. So we are once again calling on you to be a cornerstone in ensuring that this key component of the Convention of Climate Change continues to function and function at a very high level. We have a long history of developing processes and moving them forward, looking at timelines, the number of parties who are involved. As these begin to grow, how do we manage to take what works well forward? And how do we introduce to the parties who are having discussions with things they may not want to carry forward? How do we bring all of this new innovation and creativity, the new approaches, and the discussions about those approaches into the process where parties can have further discussions and have that inform their decision making? We have an opportunity to set how the stage will look for the next 20 or 25 years. So as we develop how we will deal with the next 2 or 3 years, let's always bear in mind that we are building for the next 20 to 25 years. The team from the Secretariat are here, smiling, and I have seen the background for Katya's presentation, and they are very well blended. So I think you have a delightful expectation when Katya takes the floor. The team is here, and they will be providing any assistance, guidance, and opportunities that you will need in order to come up with what would be the next steps we shall all take. It is indeed a pleasure to continue to work with you. And I want to emphasize this feeling of family. We are not here negotiating anything. We are looking at our processes that have already been negotiated and coming up with the best way of bringing those agreements into a better reality. All of you have had the opportunity to participate in centralized reviews as well as in-country reviews in the past. And you know how much of a relationship building process it is for those who are serving as experts, as well as the countries that you visit or interact with. It gives you an opportunity to establish lifelong friendships and relationships, and to discuss in a very informal way all the different views that countries have and all of the key issues that make up the positions of countries. You are in a unique position to be able to understand and see all sides. And this has been one of those driving factors that has led to the success of the entire process. So I wish that everybody who participates in our process has the opportunity to be in one of these groups and experience that camaraderie, that sharing of expertise and experience, and simply getting to know people who you will interact with in many different ways. So, on behalf of the Secretariat, I want to thank you for everything you have delivered, and I look forward to the deliveries that you will be making in the future. So, welcome, and let's be very successful. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Don. We'll now, just a moment, I apologize for, there were slight technical issues with the sound, and we would invite everybody to turn off their sound system, so this will not happen again. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but that also creates feedback and noise. Now I would like, it's also my pleasure to invite Katya Semyonova, which you all know as well, and she's the manager of the subdivisions of MRV ETF here in the Transparency Division, and she would say a few introductory words. Katya, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Victor, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the virtual reality of the 7th Lead Reviewers meetings for the review of inventories and annual submissions of Annex 1 parties. It's very encouraging to see that some of you who attended the meeting in the morning also attend the meeting in the afternoon, which shows that this must be really a very, very interesting meeting. I wish I could invite all of you in person here in Bonn, where it's beautiful and the view from Langeogen to the Rhine River and the city is incredible. But unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, we cannot do that. And we are really missing all of you here in Bonn, you as lead reviewers, and which is a proxy for champions of the review process. You are kind of people that with your presence and the smiling faces always inspire me, myself personally, but also my team to move ahead in the very interesting but also very challenging task of MRD and transparency. I want to share with you that again, because of the COVID pandemic, remote and virtual became buzzwords when we are speaking about the UNFCCC meetings. And this is not just about the lead reviewers meeting in which we are engaged just now, but it applies equally to the meetings of the constituted bodies such as CDM Executive Board, Compliance Committee, and also to a number of other meetings, including also the lead reviewers meeting of biennial reports and national communication that took place during the June momentum of climate change. This applies also to the number of reviews for BR submissions and technical analysis of BRs and RED Plus submissions that have taken place since the beginning of the year. Altogether, what we have done so far together as a secretariat, together with you as experts, clear in terms of review activities, but also in terms of advancing work of the constituted bodies, clearly demonstrate commitment by parties, by experts, and also by the secretariat to advance the work under the UNFCCC despite the constraints and the challenges which the virtual and remote working bring to all of us. I want to highlight only 2 points for which we very often get questions from review experts and from other stakeholders engaged in the UNFCCC process. The first is about postponing of COP26. Indeed, the Bureau has taken decision to postpone COP26 to 2021 in order to keep all of us safe from COVID-19. But we should remain reassured that postponing of the COP does not by all means mean postponing of climate action. And in this context, I wanted to remind you that the substance work on transparency, which is definitely the most important component of SB work for our audience, remains in a way impacted by the postponing of COP26. Because for obvious reason, parties will not be able to meet in Glasgow this year, and they will not be able to adopt the outcome of the substance work on transparency. However, we should remain optimistic about the possibilities to advance the work on transparency. Firstly, because we have a very good results that came from Madrid on transparency that are captured in the facilitator's notes. And secondly, because at the moment we are in dialogue with the Chair and the presidencies in finding the best ways forward to advance with the technical discussion on transparency. Then the second question that we get very often is about the COVID-19 recovery and the impact on the NDC updates, which are due this year. Indeed, many parties are now considering reflecting green recovery from COVID-19 impacts while updating their NDCs. And this takes time and may definitely lead to some delays in the submission of new or updated NDCs. However, we remain optimistic that most of the parties will manage to make their submissions by the end of this year. Also, for those of you who have been engaged in listening to the June Momentum, and if you haven't done so, I would encourage you to do so at least for the opening event, which was recorded. You may become aware, listening to this event, that many parties are now on their way to include climate change considerations along with creating jobs and just transition in the heart of the COVID recovery, which is a very positive signal that comes from different corners of the world. Then, in concluding and coming back to our meeting, as you are very well aware, one of the main objectives of the meeting is to advance our collective knowledge of the review process and to facilitate the lead reviewers in their role to ensuring consistency and efficiency of the reviews under the existing MRV system. And this is a goal that has been a kind of overarching goal so far, and it will remain a very important and overarching goal for this meeting as well. However, I wanted to remind you that as the submissions of the BTRs under the Paris Agreement, including the National Inventory Reports, are due by 2024, at the latest, US lead reviewers could also start engaging in discussions on the operational aspects of the reviews under the Paris Agreement in 2022 at the latest, with the view to gain ownership of the process. Sorry. In concluding, I would like to wish you engaging, exciting, and thought-provoking discussions. Thank you, and I wish you again a very good and successful meeting. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Katya, and for your comments and introduction. We will take in consideration. So now there is actually from my side a short presentation on the introductions to this meeting and to present some information that may be useful for you to navigate in the meeting. But before, I think I will have I need to introduce the team. The team that is supporting the lead reviews meeting. They have to work very hard to make sure that the meeting is functional and also that is functional during the rest of the week, which is not so easy in a remote environment. And this is Kirsten, Tina, Javier, Claudia, and Roman, and myself, Vitor. And then we're supporting the team. In addition, from the transparency division, and not only transparency divisions, also other people from the secretariat, we have invited them, and they have kindly agreed to present, to show the best information, and hoping not forget anybody. We have Lisa, Shuhong and Karen, Toby and Kyoko, Vlad, Pedro and Tomo, Lauren and Naship, and Afida and Tambi from the LA. And also we have Klaus and Peppo or Maria Jose Lopez that will help us preparing the background papers. In addition to this, we are very honored for the representative of other institutions to have agreed to have accepted our invitations and came and join us and present. So you have seen presentations from Sandro from the IPCC, and Roberta Quadrelli and Francisco Mathion from IEA, and Gao Xiang is here in this role of the member of the facilitative branch of the KP Compliance Committee. To all of them, we send our sincere gratitude. So, and we also finally would like to thank for all people attending, and lead reviewers and observers, and also for Thelma Krug and Mikhail Gitarski, which as usually has agreed to our invitation to take the role of co-facilitators of the conclusions and recommendations. So moving to the meeting, maybe you could. And so here we also have, you're going to see Javier controlling also the chat, and we have Claudia controlling the hand, but I'll explain that later. So moving to the meeting, Claudia, could you please move? So basically, this information, the meeting, the presentation, which is available on the web, and I hope you had time to watch. This is it contains information why the meeting was postponed and what was the original idea for the meeting, and the original idea we have 6. It was quite extensive meeting. We have, for the first time, I think we have 92 or 95 participants, which was a record, and we have 6 breakout groups and covering several issues. I'll speak later on that, and also a refresher seminar. I think was one of the highlights of the meeting. Was organized by the training unit, and you contain an innovative approach for the meeting. So unfortunately, we didn't have it. I'm not going to repeat the reasons. Kathy explained, and of course you read the news on the newspaper, so we don't need to explain. And so can you move forward 2 slides, please? Another one. So another one. Yeah, this one. And so this graph that we have prepared sounds a bit complex, but tries to show in a graphical manner how the agenda looks like and how the progress of the meeting during this review, during this week takes place. So last week you received an email from Tina indicating that the presentations were available, and all the presentations were available and with the video recordings. And then you said that by a questionnaire that you could raise your questions and send your questions. So you did, and we received about 52 questions in total for the general presentations, and a few more for the breakout groups. So and then today is the blue. It looks like the blue pill on 29 on June. And we had 2 sessions. In the session in the morning, it took place. It's just some of you have attended, I think, and this and we went through all the presentations, and then in the afternoon in Bonn, of course, in the afternoon in Bonn, and let's say the second sessions, we repeating it again. Of course, you can go to the other link and see what was discussed in terms of the recordings in the chat. So tomorrow we have two breakout groups, one on the consistency issues and another one on the enhancing the reviews or operationalization of the reviews, and these are supported by two background papers and two presentations. So this, again, each of the breakout groups will be organized again as two sessions, and one in the morning and one in the afternoon. In this case, it's not necessarily the case that there are repetitions, because you have a progress, you trying to collect ideas, so it's more difficult, but then we'll make sure that you have the final conclusions from the groups, and you'll be able to comment. And this will be on Wednesday, the 1st of July, is a kind of holiday for you, not so much for us and for your co-facilitators. And when the breakout groups will provide the final elements for conclusions, the contributions, and a kind of final agreement, that's something not to be touched again. And then the co-facilitators, Michael and Thelma, they will look at it, and also some elements collected today, and they'll prepare a complete draft conclusions. Of course, probably they will take in consideration the specific type of meeting that we have. It's a remote. It's difficult to it's not so easy to discuss. There's no, I mean, there's some corridors. There's probably the chat is the corridor, and then in the end they will, and then we'll provide more information on that later on. That's maybe not relevant at this moment, but what is important is you see the presentations. Something is going okay. You see the presentations, but and then during today, in these presentations this time, we don't see proposals for conclusions because of the fact that I say it may be difficult to discuss it. But if you think that some of the elements should be included in the conclusions, but for that I will say that you need to be pragmatic, because this is a remote environment. Don't look so much at the language, but as ideas that you like to see, and then ideas that we should be expressed, and then the co-facilitators they will look at it and see how feasible that's it. That's it. That's how feasible it is to include those in the conclusions. So I think basically I present everything. As I said, I think I'll provide maybe at the end more information on the box and then the conclusions, and then now we go into a long set of presentations. The good thing that you have it recordings with saving some time, so we'll not have to look at the presentations again. Some of you has commented. There was a comment that the set of presentations will look like a Netflix binge. So yes, I also watched it and from beginning to end, and it took some time. Yeah, it took some time, but I think it's useful because then you can think and you can move back and forward, and so I think it's in that sense I think it helps if you make yourself sure that you watch the presentations. So I think we have a slide also, just an explanation on how to operate. We call it housekeeping rules. And the thing is, if you're not speaking, you should, and myself included, we have to take our camera out, so we give space for the speaker, right? So this is something. There's a button. I know that this configuration may vary from browser to browser and system to system. Some of the Javier was telling me that some of the systems are difficult to find the hand or the chat. If you do have any questions, just ask. And then another thing, please keep your microphone muted unless you're given the floor to speak, or of course if you want to speak and you cannot find anything to speak, so just politely you could ask for that. And then the chat sometimes, and the hand on the chat, sometimes they may be tricky to find, but then you try to click in the dots. Otherwise, just try to ask us. So that's how we're operating in the new environment, and so there's the hand when you want to speak, and then you have the chat, and the chat has proved to be very useful in the other meetings and communicating and exchanging views when let's say in the corridor, let's put it this way, behind the scenes, and this can help the process. And then if you also have some views for the conclusions, as I says, please say so. And also if you have technical issues, of course, the chat is, yeah. And of course, and then the questions, you can also, if you want to speak your questions, you do. Otherwise, you can just write it, and then we have you the questions, and then you can read it and ask us for the presenters. And this may turn even more interactive when you go to the box and to the conclusions. Yes, Roman is pressing me to stop. I'll do it, and I think I finish. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to start the presentations, and each presenter, they know it because they did it in the morning, but for the new people attending, they will have 1 minute brief introduction to the presentation, description of presentations. Then they will start responding to the questions that were already received for the meeting, and then they will tell who sent the meeting, what the question was, and what comment they have, and then we'll give the floor for additional comments there is additional comments that you have using the chat, and if you want to speak, you have the hand. So without much ado, there's an issue that we just have to make a small change in the agenda in the order of presenters, because you're going to see it's logical. It has to do with the time zones with the presenters coming from. So we're moving forward the Gao and Sandro, and then Katia kindly accepted to delay her presentation, but I also know that Katia has commitments. So Gao and Sandro, let's try to be timely. And then Javier is providing in the chat information on the systems. Yeah. Okay. So if there's no urgent questions, I would invite again Gao to present the tool. We've seen this presentation in other forum, and that's I think you'll find very interesting. It has to do with the work of the facility branch, but without more information, I would invite Gao to make a short introduction and then to address the questions, and also maybe Hafida, and she could complement if necessary. Thank you, Gao. You have the floor. Something. Gao, we're not listening to you. Is Gao there? Yeah, moves to center. Okay. Apparently. Apparently, Gao is unavailable. Maybe he had some connection issues. So if Sandro doesn't mind, maybe Sandro can start the presentation. So if Sandro is okay, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
My minute will just read something from the overview of the refinement, but clarify what the refinement is, what was the goal, what has been the goal achieved, how it works in the IPCC framework of methodologies. So the statement here says that the 2019 refinement does not revise the 2006 IPCC guidelines, but updates, supplements, and/or elaborates the 2006 guidelines, where gaps or out-of-date science have been identified. So this means that the refinement is not a replacement. You don't compare the refinement methodologies with the 2006 methodologies, because the 2019 methods and values just replace those of the 2006 guidelines, because they were old and the better science has been found. So a comparative analysis doesn't bring any value. Also for this reason, since just update and supplement some section and chapter of the 2006 guidelines, the refinement cannot be used as a standalone document. It just to be used integrated together with the 2006 guidelines. So this is the short presentation. Then I go with the question that I received. The first question was from Kent Buchanan. It's about when the countries will use the refinement for the greenhouse gas inventories. So all of you know that the refinement has not been agreed by the CMA. So in any case, it remains an IPCC guidelines that countries may, on a voluntary basis, use as any other scientific report. So in theory, because it was published in December, already in this inventory cycle, maybe some country has used it. Honestly, I don't know. But I expect that year by year, more countries will be using the refinement just because the methods are better explained. The different factors are more accurate, so there is no any reason for not using it. The second question is about, from Julius Mazzure, is about the fact that the refinement may require more disaggregated data than the 2006 guidelines, so this is seen as a challenge. Honestly, in general, this is not the case. The level of disaggregation is very similar. In some cases, indeed, there is some like for livestock for enteric fermentation. I guess you have a high productivity system and low productivity system. However, in this case, is also the expert judgment remain a source of data. So, I mean, has been designed anyhow tier 1 also for the refinement to be universally applicable with the current available data. So I don't think it would be, this should be a particular challenge. Then the third question is from Samir Tantawi, is about the update of the IPCC inventory software with the refinement methods and factors. Yes, this is a very good idea. We have this idea, but we are still in a complex plan of updates of the software with the 2006 methods and with the veteran supplement. So for the next 2 years, we won't be doing any work with the refinement for the software. Of course, in the future, this is a natural evolution. And the last question was from John Watterson, is about if there is a list of all the emission factors that has been updated, a list of those updated or those newly introduced. I should say there is not this list. However, each volume has a mapping, has an annex, usually it's Annex 1, the first annex, where there are the mapping tables. And the mapping tables, there is all, is a very detailed description of all section, equation, tables that has been updated. So, though you don't have the single factors that has been updated, you know which table has been updated or which new table has been provided. So these already provide, I guess, enough information. Then, in this case, the plan is a little bit more advanced. We have planned to input the 2019 refinement factors into the EFDB database, the emission factor database. So once this factor will be there, it will be easy to search them. So this kind of list could be generated indeed by inquiring the EFDB. And this is the question that I received. If there are other questions now from the floor, I will be happy to deal. Thank you.
Thank you. You can stay with the presentation. Thank you, Sandro, and also for the others. Please check the presentation. And I don't, if Javier, no comments. So no comments received so far from the chat. But I think this issue will also be covered not from this point of view of the use, but the review. They will be discussed in the consistency breakout group tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, so you may also attend that meeting. I see also, yes.
If I may say, I will attend as a reviewer, not as a PCC TFI TSU. So it will be my, yes, I will attend as a reviewer. It will be my opinion as a reviewer, not that one of the office.
From now on, in this meeting, of course. One comment from Peter Sezov.
There is a question.
There's a question. I don't know if you can see it. Otherwise, I can read for you. And he says, how should we approach situations where a party had already implemented 2019 refinement, which might lead to difficulties in comparison with parties who has not specifically, he says specifically for fugitive venting and flaring, these separations of the emissions. So maybe Javier, no. Okay. So I don't know if you have any comment, but I think this issue also will be.
I mean, as a PCC, may say that anyhow there are various tier level, in all methods. So with a different level of disaggregation. So I guess this is a case that may occur in many categories in inventory. Because if you apply tier 1, the level disaggregation is something, if you go for tier 2 is much higher, and tier 3 is even higher, even with more detail. So I don't think this is a particular issue for the 2019 refinement. It's just the tiered approach that the PCC has, so comparison anyhow is ensured.
But in terms of the separations, no, there's no.
What you want to know about the separation?
With the venting and flaring and the.
Actually, I'm not an expert in energy, but so far as I remember, the 2019 refinement provide one factor for the three processes: leaking, the venting, and flaring. While the 2006 was providing the three different factors.
Right.
So yes, there is the comparison is not there but the comparison will be at the level of the total. If you sum up, at the end of the 2019 refinement factors are the sum of the three factors in 2006. So the factor is the same. In one case you have three numbers that sum up, in the other you have one single value that is the sum of the three. I don't think it is. So the comparison is not a level of the single process, but a level of the total.
Javier is alerting me this is going to be discussed tomorrow, and we have two presenters which would like to start as early as possible, and so thank you very much, Sandro, and see you.
I have a meeting. Speaker tomorrow.
Yes. But you'll be provided with information. But you have a hand from Gao. I think it's for his presentation. I guess
so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Gao, can I ask you something? So now we have a conflicting. Okay, we have a conflicting request because both you and Katya need to leave. So would you mind if Katya would be first?
Yes, no problem.
No problem. Okay, sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Yes, but okay, Katya. But before Katya, there is Newton. Newton, this is something related to Sandro or in general?
In Sandro.
Okay, so Sandro, sorry if you can.
Yeah, I'm here.
So Newton.
Yes, good morning, all colleagues. So I'm not posing the question before, but I would like to know, strictly from the lead reviewers or the review experts, how we should do when of course, we have methodologies for dates and elaboration. The methodologies are available. How we, from our side, as reviewers, do want in cases where the new methodologies conflict with its the 2006 guidelines. Just an example, we have a refinement that is the analysis. So, that would be different from how the plan, how it is in the 2006. So, are parties allowed to use the new plan analysis, or they should still use the old one? How we should do from the review side? Thank you. I guess this is a question for tomorrow discussion, it's not for IPCC. And I say that there is not this, as I told before, there is not this comparison for IPCC, as you may read in the overview. The new method just replaced the previous one, and that's it. The previous one has been found either out of date or not clear enough, has been replaced. And there is no any factor consideration. Then for the review there are some legal requirements, I understand, so it's a different type of discussion, I guess.
Yes, Newton, I think this is part of the consistency breakout group that will take place tomorrow. I mean, there's a section on the paper, the background paper, and I know also there's a slide on this topic. And I think there's a difference between how you dealt with the reviews, which is your role, and how you deal with the reporting, which maybe negotiations. So we have Newton, you're raising the floor again. Yeah, I see okay. Newton? No. So, Newton? Okay. And
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Newton. And I see your comment from Marcelo, but I guess this is just a comment that would stay in the chat for the record. Is that the case, or Marcelo, or that's something you want to say? I think it's just for the chat. Anyway, otherwise I invite Katya on the presentations, and this presentation is very helpful because it also, in particular for those that do not participate in negotiations, because it provides an update on the latest developments of the COP and the futures and the future plans. So please, Katya, a short presentation, then the responses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. I'm not sure I'm managing 1 minute, but I'll try at least to summarize the presentation in 5 minutes, and hopefully to raise your appetite to listen to it. Can you show the next slide, please? In my presentation, I highlighted very briefly the COP25 outcome and maintained the view that despite the rather negative reflection on COP25 in the press, perhaps because of the lack of outcome on Article 6, which was the kind of expectation for this particular COP in view of the mandate stemming from Katowice. Actually, COP25 delivered on a number of issues that are of critical importance to advance implementation of the Convention and also the Kyoto Protocol in the areas of adaptation, means of implementation, gender, action for climate empowerment, and adoption of the budget. Then one of the areas where I tried to provide some highlights in the presentation is the outcome of Substa 51 on transparency. Unfortunately, we did not have formally agreed conclusions on this item, but parties managed to advance substantively working on all 5 items included under the transparency item in the SBI Substa 51 is reflected in the notes by the facilitator. And as I have mentioned in my introductory remarks, this provides kind of good basis to move forward in any further discussions or negotiations. Moving to the COP outlook, COP26, as you know, has been postponed for 2021. And despite that it was postponed, it will remain a COP that will focus heavily on climate action and ambition. But at the same time, I wanted to remind you that it's not just COP26, but it's also 2020 that remains a year of tremendous opportunity to scale and speed up climate action. And we expect this to be manifested in more ambitious NDCs to be submitted this year, or updates in long-term emission development strategies that are also expected to be submitted this year. And the expectations are that these submissions will be in line with what science is telling us is necessary in terms of actions by parties in order to maintain reasonable chances to achieve the temperature goals under the Paris Agreement. And the key question for COP26 will remain how the UNFCCC can provide sufficient incentives for action which is necessary from governments and stakeholders that can drive the transformation in economy and society towards the decarbonization pathways and carbon neutrality by the mid of the century. I wanted also to highlight another issue from the presentation, which is the moving to enhance transparency framework and move from two-track approach of the existing system to the one-track approach, and recognizing the evolving role of the lead reviewers, which is the meeting in which you are engaged now, which is very important in terms of advancing the ongoing implementation of the existing LRV system, but also starting to bring experiences forward that might be of huge relevance for the enhanced transparency framework. We as the Secretariat are engaged in this process as well. We are looking at the tools and processes that may help in this transition, and Lisa will speak about this matter. And my slides conclude with the outlook for SB 52, which at the time when I presented the presentation was expected to take place in person. But now we know that due to the Bureau decision this month, SB 52 will be postponed to later next year, so it will not take place in person. And we received several questions in advance, and I would like to very quickly address them and to be able also to address any further questions that you may have. We have a question from Ken Buhan on providing list of acronyms, which we'll do. And then he's also asking why in the last slide we explicitly focused on the need for enhancing further capacity of experts on biennial reports, but we don't mention GHG Inventory Reviewers. And of course, this sentence, which is in the presentation, and refers to the need to strengthen the pool of experts, refers to both BR and GHG reviews, and many of you who have been engaged this year in reviews have noticed perhaps that we have more experts, we can engage more experts than the usual ERT composition, exactly with the purpose to build, to continue to build this capacity of new experts to be able to meet the challenges of the huge number of reviews in the future. Then there is a question by Fatma Demiryuk, and this is rather a comment on the presentation and the points which were made that COP25 was kind of disappointment for many stakeholders because of the lack of ambition and a number of items that concluded with Rule 16 and also in particular the 3 items that stem from Katowice Rule Book, and this is definitely an area where it's difficult to disagree. We have a comment from Sekai from IPCC TSU. She makes a very important comment of the need to ensure that CRF tables are simplified in order to accommodate the transition from existing MRV system. In particular, I guess the question is for developing countries to the use of these tables, and we definitely agree with her point, but we also need to take carefully into consideration the need to ensure very good balance between simplification of these tables on the one hand, and on the other hand to continue to ensure transparency and consistency of the reported information and no backsliding. Then we have a question from Samir Tantawi, and his question directly refers to presentation on how the UNFCCC can incentivize action of necessary scale from the governments and other stakeholders. There are several possible answers to this question, and the first one is that the COP usually provides guidance on the support which is provided to developing countries in the area of finance, technology and capacity building, and this is definitely one of the important incentives for action, specifically for developing countries. The other incentive is that through the UNFCCC process, parties are showcasing their success stories and also problems that they face in the implementation. They also show best practices that are scalable and replicable, and this could be also quite important incentive for other countries to follow these best practices by tailoring them to the context of their own countries. Then he also has a question on, and finally, of course, stakeholders, various stakeholders, business sector, scientific community, state, the regions and subnational governments, cities, they are all taking action, and by showcasing their action, this can create also an opportunity and more confidence for the governments to understand better the opportunities for increasing the ambition, because at the end of the day, the results of all these actions by multiple stakeholders are reflected in the inventories that we are reviewing. And Samir is also asking about what kind of support Secretariat is providing or could provide to developing countries in order to ensure a transition to the ETF. I can mention at least three different ways or opportunities. This is the work of CGE, this is the work of Paris Committee of Capacity Building that in its recent meeting during the June momentum specifically focused on transparency, and also the ETF work undertaken by the Secretariat, with which we will make you familiar as we move forward. And last but not least, let's not forget that the process of submission of BRs in their technical assessment, at least in my view, and Shuhong will support me a little bit later on, is perhaps the best opportunity for parties for learning by doing from the technical assessment process. In particular, keeping in mind that one of its important pillars is identification of capacity building needs for developing countries. So these are the questions that have been received in advance, but if there are any further questions, we have a couple of minutes, so I'll be happy to respond.
So, Javier? No.
Okay, then again, thank you very much. I hope that you have an opportunity to have a second look at the presentation, and many of the presentations that will follow, in particular by Shuhong and Lisa, will help to unpack some of the points which I made in my presentation at a high level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katya. So, yes, we'll have presentations by Lisa and Shuhong, but we promise Gao to move his presentations forward, and I know that Gao is now available. So, Claudia, can you help with the presentation? So, Gao, you were not here, but I already introduced you, telling that you're going to present information on the tool that you've been using in the meetings of facility branch of the KP Compliance Committee, but then I realize you're not here, so please take one presentation in 1 minute or two, and then address the questions that you had. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Rita, and good evening, colleagues, and it's my pleasure to join the Lead Review meeting as a member on the KP Compliance Committee Facility Branch. And as you know, I hope you have reviewed the presentation and also the video records online. I'm not going to try to go through all these slides and just give you some background information on why we do this. As you know as well, that the KP Compliance Committee has two branches. The enforcement branch based their work only on the question of implementations raised by the ERTs in the review reports. I think you are very familiar with that. And for the facility branch, we have a broader mandate to look at the potential issues that could prevent the party from compliance. And therefore, the facility branch needs to read the outcomes from the transparency framework, especially the review reports. And during the past years, we tried to identify those issues that are persistent or significant or systemic faced by a certain party or parties, because we feel if there are such issues, they would prevent a party or several parties from compliance. And based on the assessment, then we could discuss with the ERTs, the reviewers, and the party councils to see how we could help the party comply with it. However, as you may know, that most of the members of the compliance committee come from a legal background, not from transparency background. Therefore, the IDRs or the ARRs are too technical and complicated to us. And we wish to develop the guiding tool to capture the information needed for our deliberation and in a simple way, and could be used in a consistent manner among the members. And after several years, we developed the general assessment and overview tool last year, and used that for trial and updated
I think we lost Gao for a while, but I
for
think
their advice to us. And in fact, the GAO tool is an Excel-based tool to guide the members to find the information needed in the IDRs and ARRs step by step. So I think the tool would be too simple to you, as all of you are experienced transparency experts. However, in our assessment, we have set up some criteria for what would persistent, significant, or systemic mean. But we feel we need practice within the facility branch, as well as the experience from lead reviewers to guide us how to further modify them, because there's no definition from the negotiation or like from the literatures. We can just try to set up some criteria and then by practice and then to modify them. And we feel the transparency framework provides necessary information for the compliance assessment under the QF protocol. And in fact, this interplace between transparency and compliance also play an important role under the Paris Agreement. And this allow me to make an advertisement that Christina Voigt of Norway, who is the co-chair of the Paris Agreement Implementation and Compliance Committee, and I will jointly publish our new paper soon in the Nordic Environmental Law Journal, based on our co-facilitators' understanding on Article 15 and Article 13 of the Paris Agreement, and we feel that you would be interested in our paper, and it will be online soon. According to the written questions and comments, we get several, and we thank you very much for your interest and support to our work. For the questions, there are generally two categories. The first one is about access to the tool. Although it's quite a simple one, I just mentioned it's just an Excel-based tool, but we are very glad that the lead reviewers are interested in helping us to optimize the tool. Although previously we took the tool as an internal tool, but we right now are consulting with the members of the facility branch to see if they wish, and also how we can share this tool with the lead reviewers. The second question is about the entry into force of the Doha Amendment of the QF protocol. On the consequence of no entry into force of the Doha Amendment, the short answer is that the second commitment period obligations are not legally binding on whether some parties may still submit on a voluntary basis to their compliance obligations within the UNFCCC process. By the way, they can do what they wish to do at the domestic level, but the process should be clarified by the CMP in the view of the possible finance cost of the process. And previously, we also discussed among this the facility branch and also the secretarial team. I'm not quite sure whether right now we have any colleagues from the legal department of the secretariat. If we have some colleagues there, I would like to give the floor back to Rita, and maybe we can invite colleagues from the legal department to give some further elaboration on this very interesting issue about the Doha Amendment. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you very much, Gao. We're going to check that. I don't think so. But meanwhile, we have a question by Marcelo. You can see it in the chat, and then maybe you also can, if yes, then you can report on the chat, because he's asking if it would be possible to share the link to the paper that you just mentioned, the paper with Christina, I think. It's not published yet. Okay. Yeah, but maybe
yes, right now
you can. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, thanks, Marcelo. Right now it is not published yet. We have just cleaned the final version, and as soon as we get it published, Christina and I can circulate to our colleagues. Thanks.
Thank you, Gao. I don't, Javier, no? I don't see any more requests. So, but please go ahead. Then if you have any more, then maybe we can consider it later. Yes, we have to move forward. And the next two presentations, they, as Kathy mentions, they related. And there's Lisa's presentations on enhanced transparency framework about the information on GHG reviews and what will happen in the Paris Agreement, and then on Shuhong, you could see a very comprehensive presentation on the experience from ICA, the current ICA process, and both of them originally they were supportive materials in the original meeting that we have in March. We were planning to have a breakout group on the experiences with inventories and also the future, which is something that probably you're not maybe not act as lead reviewers for the Paris Agreement, but still maybe it's a topic to consider, because it may be that in the future some of you will be members of the lead reviewers for the Paris Agreement. So just guessing. But so I want to invite first Lisa, and again, if you think any of those from the materials of these questions deserve a comment in the conclusions, not a comment, a paragraph or something, and it's not very and you don't think it's very complicated to add, just please indicate, so then we can understand what could be included. So please, Lisa, you want to control the presentation, or?
Thanks, Peter. I can just move to the next one. It's okay. The next slide. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about the ETF. And I wish I could go into a lot more detail, as Katya had promised, but Peter has only given me 1 minute. A summary of the presentation, the purpose was really to start talking about the enhanced transparency framework, how it fits into the Paris Agreement, and what the transition looks like over the next couple of years. Importantly, we wanted to highlight to you some of the work that is underway at the Secretariat, and Katya introduced those as well with the work of the CGE, the PCCB, and in our case, the Enhanced Transparency Framework Reference Manual. It is a manual that we have, a draft has been made available to you, and it is a resource that we hope will help reviewers, but also parties and other stakeholders like the Compliance Committee to understand how all of the different elements of the Paris Agreement fit together with respect to the Enhanced Transparency Framework. We presented this at the Lead Reviewers meeting in earlier this month, or last month, and are welcoming comments through August 15th. So please take the opportunity to look at it and provide your feedback. The other important part of the presentation, I think, was really to tell you our door is open. We want to hear about your thoughts on the operationalization of the ETF. For the past several years, we get together every year and we talk about how can we improve the process, what can we do better, what resources can we provide. And we really have an opportunity here to do that. And so, as Vita mentioned, I think as Don and Katya also mentioned, many of you will be involved in the Enhanced Transparency Framework as reviewers, as lead reviewers, and you have important messages to convey to that group. And so we are looking forward to the opportunity to start those conversations here today in the chat, going forward, call us. We're happy to talk about it and look for opportunities to make a very strong and robust system. In terms of the questions that came in, I wanted to highlight this slide of the presentation because a lot of the questions were quite detailed or related to greenhouse gas inventories. The first one, however, was broader, and it was from Julius, and he noted that the substantive work on the common reporting tables, the CTF, and the outlines is essential, and particularly he was noting the relationship with capacity building needs. And I think there, I would say that I think it's important to note that 18 CMA1 is already very explicit, and so it's very clear what the requirements are for reporting. And so in that respect, I think the capacity building needs, countries can identify them, in particular building on what they're doing under the BUR process, which Shuhan will talk about. But it is true that the finalization of the reporting tables and the finalization of the outlines will introduce new capacity building needs. For example, how to work with any tools that are available for reporting. So that is true. Two specific questions came in on the indirect CO2 is encouraged. There was a question from Elsa, was this intended to refer to the indirect N2O? And that's true. I mean, it is true that indirect CO2 is encouraged for reporting, but indirect N2O from sources other than LULUCF and agriculture should be reported under the Paris Agreement. And for developed countries, this is actually more strict because it's a may under the current reporting guidelines, and this would be new for developing countries. A second comment came in from Sandro on the note for a party to indicate if natural disturbances are in the totals. And his comment was that it means that the party has to report if the natural disturbances have been estimated as a single component within the national total. And there I would only say that this language was taken from the paragraph 55 of the MPGs. But it's true that parties under the Paris Agreement will have a choice whether or not to address natural disturbances. I think how they will address them and how it will be reflected in any kind of reporting tables could be still under discussion. Parties have the option to use to describe how the approach that they have taken is consistent with the IPCC guidance. So that's on that point. And then several comments came in from Samir and John Watterson on the flexibilities that are referred to in this table. And there, if I can do it very quickly, I was going to try to show you, and now it's going to be gone. Yeah, I was going to try, it's in the ETF reference manual that we have. Whoops, sorry. Can you go back, please? Is that possible? Yeah, and flexibility, they are in the ETF reference manual. If you look at page table 3, it talks about the various flexibilities, and most of them have been identified because these are requirements for reporting that are different, for example, from what developing countries are currently required to do, and so it provides an avenue for countries to enhance their reporting over time. And so there are flexibilities, for example, related to the gases that have to be reported. So those developing countries that need it in light of their flexibility, in light of their capacities, maybe I'll go back here, in light of their capacities can report just the CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide, and then any other gases that are in their NDC or are in Article 6 project or that they have reported before. There is flexibility for the reporting time series because that will be a significant change. Instead of going to 1990, they can start with the year of the reference period of the NDC and then annually from 2020 onwards. The inventory year, instead of the T-2, which is currently what is done by the developed countries, they can have T-3. So the current year -3 would be for reporting. There are flexibilities related to the significance threshold, which is a favorite, I know, of the lead reviewers. It's twice as high as the current threshold, again, for those countries that need it in light of their capacity. So these are the types of flexibility. There are specific provisions outlined in the 18 CMA1, and again, I would encourage you to take a look at the reference manual where there's a table that demonstrates those flexibilities. So those were the questions received. Again, I would just conclude by saying we really welcome your feedback. I think many of you have been involved in this process really since the beginning, and I think that there's so much that you have to offer, not only to the current process, but to think about the future. And I think we'll be in contact with you on different ways that you can convey that knowledge, and we look forward to the discussions. So for me, Peter, that's all. I can't at the moment see the chat, so if you could let me know if there's any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. In the chat, yes, sometimes it's hard to see, but when you're presenting, but there's 2 comments. One from Marcelo, and I think it's a comment, and he's saying just to recall that SAPSTA is still negotiating the training for under the Paris agreements and under the ETF and the training. I'm sorry, I need to click see more. And the training material has not yet been decided. Therefore, the manual that you're mentioning is prepared by the Secretariat under his responsibility and has not yet been considered by SAPSTA as part of the training material. Yeah. And then the other one is from John Watson's son, and then it just thanks you for the flexibility, the explanations on flexibility. So if you want me to repeat again?
No, I heard, thank you. And Marcelo, yes, you're right. I only mentioned the CRT and the CTF and the outlines because that was the question from Julius. But you're correct. I mean, on the reference manual, that is a product of the Secretariat, and it's not part of any kind of the training program. It's a resource that we have developed, and we look forward to your feedback. And thanks, John, for the question on the flexibility and the opportunity to highlight the ETF reference manual. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. I don't see more comments. Anyway, again, I think we discussed this. If you think some aspects could be taken into conclusions or any other thing that we should do, please inform. Please write in the chat and then we collect it. I would, because we're running slightly late, I might invite Shu Hong, and I think I introduced already the presentation of Shu Hong. Is on the experience with the ICA and also taking considerations the readiness for ETF. I think it's a very interesting presentation from particularly for those that never experienced the BOR review. So Shu Hong, if you're available.
Yes, thank you, Victor, for giving me the floor. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. It's really nice to meet you virtually. I really miss you all. It's a very unusual situation now we are facing with COVID-19, and I hope the situation will improve better. I hope you take good care of yourselves and stay well. So for my presentation, 1 minute to summarize. So I'll try to be quick. So basically, my presentation, as you can see from the title, is really to give a brief update on the existing MRV for developing country parties, which is the ICA process, and what that means for moving to the enhanced transparency framework. So far, we have received BUR submissions from 57 developing country parties, and that accounts for more than 1/3 of all developing country parties. And more we have received NIRs submitted by parties to accompany their BUR submissions. And then for those parties that consider NIR as part of their BURs, we actually add more GHG inventory experts in the review team so that to provide a more in-depth analysis, and then of course in consultation with parties, upon parties' agreement. So that's the approach. One of the key messages from my presentation, I hope you had a chance to have a quick look at the presentation. One of the key messages is the ICA process really provides a very solid testing ground or a training opportunity for developing country parties as they transit to the enhanced transparency framework. And actually, I'm very encouraged to see many of you, just now when I went through the participant list, many of you actually have already participated in the BUR analysis, and some of you, quite a number of you, also served as the co-leads of the BUR analysis. So it's very encouraging to see that, and we hope that more and more of the lead reviewers can participate in the BUR analysis to gain more experience, and later on you can transfer this experience and knowledge to the other experts that also can help, your experience can help shape the new process under the ETF. So that's a brief summary of my presentation, and now I would like to move on to the comments and questions we have received from you, and actually we have received a number of very, very good comments and questions, so I'll just address them here briefly. So the first question is from Manuel. The question is, do you expect in the future that parties will submit in other UN languages than English, French, and Spanish? So indeed, according to the MPGs, the modalities, procedures, and guidelines for the enhanced transparency framework, parties shall submit BTR in one of the official UN languages. So that includes Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish. Based on our existing experience, that will be a challenge, because right now, among all the BURs we have received so far, we have around 30% of the BURs were submitted in either French or Spanish only, and that brings some challenge to both the review officers, the secretariat, and also to the review experts. The more challenges really during the interaction with the parties during the BUR analysis process. Even though in most cases the communication is conducted in English, however, when it comes to interaction with the parties, a large number of parties feel more comfortable, and then they explain much better and more clearly in their own languages. So So there's a point that the language has to switch to French or Spanish, and then we foresee that to be one of the challenges for the future ETF. So I just want to share with you this information. The next comment is from Julius. The comment is, I'll read out. So parties should be encouraged and supported where necessary to submit at least one BUR before 2024. The ICA process enhances identification of capacity building need for developing countries that will enhance transition to the ETF. Now we fully agree with this comment, and indeed that's also one of our key messages to parties. We really encourage parties to use the opportunity of the existing MRV and then just to submit at least one BUR to gain experience so that we are better prepared for the future ETF. So we fully concur with your comment there, and thank you for that. So the next question is also a comment. The comment is from Sirkai. And then the comment is there are differences in country experiences. Some countries have already transitioned from 1996 IPCC guidelines to the use of 2006 IPCC guidelines, and others are already trialing the use of CRF. The further comment from Shukai is developing countries can also build on lessons learned from the ICA process when reporting under the ETF. Now, this is very true, and based on our statistics, among those developing country parties who have submitted at least one BUR, we found that 75% of parties actually used 2006 IPCC guidelines. And also quite a number of developing country parties, I think more than 10, have already requested the Secretariat to provide access to the CRF because they like to have some experience using this CRF and then to prepare themselves better for the future. So it's absolute, that's the current trend that we witnessed. The next question is from Mauro Santos. The question is how the capacity needs assessment of parties coming out of the ICA process is taken into account by the Secretariat or the Convention. So this is a very good question. So for the capacity building needs assessment, indeed, the Secretariat is compiling this list. The inputs are actually this list. The inputs to this list are the national communications submitted by parties, the BURs, the BUR technical analysis summary reports, as well as the survey conducted by the CGE. So based on this capacity building needs assessment, this is actually used to help better inform more targeted technical support provided by the Secretariat as well as constituted bodies such as the CGE. If we unpack this a little bit, actually it helps really inform not only us but also implementing agencies, also informs other technical support institutes with more systematic information on, whether there are any trends with regard to this capacity building needs, either at the regional level or for a group of parties, and then it informs more targeted financial and technical support. So this is how we're using this capacity building assessment to help parties transit to ETF. The next question from Samir Tantawi is on, would you kindly clarify how the Secretariat is planning to benefit from the available technical team of experts in the ETF?
So thank you for that question. It's a good question, actually. We certainly, our TTE, the review experts under the ICA process, they are asset. They are really very valuable resources. They really have provided very instrumental guidance and support to the process. And we hope that from the Secretariat perspective to continue, hope that the TTE can continue to support future BTR reviews under the ETF. And then they can transfer their experience and knowledge base to the future process, ETF process. In particular, this group of experts, they based on the unique nature of the ICA process, they are more aware, or they're really sensitive about the nature of the ICA process, being non-intrusive, being facilitative, and then recognize that different parties have different starting point, and then the overall objective for the process is really to help parties with continuous improvement in reporting. So they can really share their experience, the TTE, they can share the experience with a broader pool of experts, and then that really can help us shape the future process under the ETF better. And also, one last point on this question, on this point, is that the TTE really, they help parties to identify their capacity building needs. They not only to identify, but also help parties to prioritize their capacity building needs, given the limited resources many parties are faced with. So their valuable experience are really an asset for the future process. The last question is from John Watterson. The question is it possible to comment on the main reasons why countries have not been able to submit a BUR? This question, I'll give it a try. This is a challenging question based on our interaction with parties and then feedback that we have heard so far. I can share with you some information, but first of all, if you look at the statistics, for those developing country parties that are not LDCs or Cs, we already have 60% of these countries submitted at least one BUR. For LDCs and Cs, they can submit BUR at their discretion. So if you look at the 60%, it's already quite impressive. Some of the possible reasons, one possible reason that were reflected by some parties about this the GEF application process. Sometimes the process can be prolonged because of various reasons, and that could perhaps contribute to the delay in some of the BUR's preparation and submission. And then GEF is fully aware of this issue, so in their current work to programming for GEF 8th cycle replenishment, we already take this into account and try to improve and streamline the process to be more efficient and help address this current issue or constraints faced by some parties. Second possible reason is that in some of the developing country parties, they are encountering some challenges with domestic or national coordination. And also in some countries, it takes long for the domestic approval process for the BUR approval. So that could also contribute to a possible delay of the BURs. And then from the Secretariat perspective, we're trying our best to help parties in setting up a domestic MRV system, not only for BUR, but also to prepare parties in the longer run. So that's all from me for this at this stage, and thank you very much for the very good questions and comments, and I'm willing to take on any questions or comments from the floor. Thank you. Back to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Shuhong, and I don't see, first you have a long list of questions, so I don't see more questions or comments, and So the next one, thank you again. So we're moving to the next one. It's a different topic, but actually it was one that somehow was touched during the presentation. Is about the training, and that's a presentation that we have for a long time in Lead Reviews meeting, also having to do with this mandate, and we invite the presentation by Tommy's team will be made by Kyoko. Kyoko will have the floor, and if you don't need any presentation, I guess you don't want to you want us to show the presentation?
No, I will not go through the slides. I can be very brief. Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share the updates of the training activities since the last Lead Reviews meeting and with all of you. In 2019, as a result of both instructed and non-instructed trainings, 24 new experts passed the mandatory exams of the basic course. For the instructed course, 2 training cycles were implemented, including the regional training seminar focusing on the experts in Asia and Pacific region. 9 new experts fulfilled the requirement to take part in the reviews under the Kyoto Protocol in 2019. In 2020, 2 training cycles of the instructed basic course are planned. And for the first cycle focusing on the experts in Latin America and Caribbean states, e-learning study period has been completed in March. The dates of the training seminar for the first cycle participants and the second cycle of the training will be confirmed hopefully after summer. The KP course exams have just been completed last week. Since the last Lead Reviewers meeting, instructors of the basic course made various efforts to improve the pass rates of the basic course, such as webinars by instructors during the e-learning study period. And details are explained in the presentation. The efforts for improvements will be continued in 2020. So we received some questions regarding those the points in the presentation. And the first question is the one from Samir about the possibility to make the e-learning courses printable and downloadable. When current training programs for the GHG Inventory Reviewers were developed, course materials were developed as the blueprints for the e-learning course developers. So the format of the blueprints as such is very different from the reading documents for the course participants. So in order to make the e-learning course printable, additional resources required to modify those blueprints to the reading documents in the PDF format. And for the moment, there is no plan to allocate the resource for this purpose. However, the courses are downloadable as the offline e-learning courses. For the participants who have difficulties in accessing internet can receive offline version through the Secretariat. And experienced reviewers should be able to access the courses that they have already studied at any time. So if you wish to access your courses, please visit the GHGMI site using your account. And if the course is not accessible, please contact the Training and Certificate Unit. Second question is on the examination. That is from John, asking for more detailed analysis on the reason why the pass rate has not been improved in 2019 despite the effort by the instructors, and any feedbacks from participants to improve examinations. to respond to this question, just let me explain this way. Last year, editorial checks to all exam questions were done. In doing so, we paid particular attention to the questions for which examinees tend to fail or poorly answered in previous examinations. The editors checked grammars and removed unclear expressions from all exams. Those revisions in the exams were mainly editorial, but for example of the LULUCF, some questions for which too many experts could not answer correctly since new exam was introduced were replaced with new questions. Regarding the question asking for the possibility to improve the course material to improve pass rates, as already explained, the priority cannot be given to the basic course in the case that the work will require a substantial amount of resources right now. So in recent years, instructors try to help participants who seem to have potentials for the technical reviews of their sectors. Instructors try to deepen understanding on participants on cross-cutting issues in order to help them not to fail the overview course exam. So in 2019, for example, 6 participants failed their sectoral exams. Despite that, they passed the overview exam, and majority of those 6 experts failed their sectoral exams by more than 10 points. The pass rate is 65 points, and the full score is 100 points. By the way, so we consider that they need to spend substantial effort to study more on how to apply IPCC guidelines and reporting guidelines in order to fill their knowledge and skill gaps to pass the sectoral exams by increasing their scores more than 10 points. And in the case of the experts who failed both overview and sectoral exams, most of those experts show much lower performance in the sectoral exams. The average score of sectoral exams of those who failed both overview and sectoral exams, the average scores of the sectoral exam was just 36.5. So, as some lead reviewers noted in the breakout group discussion on the last lead reviewers meeting, the capacity building of experts is of the fundamental importance. However, the activities of the capacity building and the training of reviewers should not be confused, as explained in the presentation. The third question is about the training under the ETF. This is from Sekai. Regarding the training program for the enhanced transparency framework and the current training program under the convention, the discussion is ongoing under the substack. So what we can say at this moment is just the authors and the secretariat will be guided by the COP decision. The first one is not the question, this is a comment from Fatma on the usefulness of the support material for non-LULUCF experts on accounting of the KP-LULUCF. We are pleased about this comment, and if you haven't studied and taken the exam in the course of Article 3.3 and 3.4 of the Kyoto Protocol course, please do not miss the training cycle next year. So that's, I think I addressed all questions and comments. So Vito, Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kyoko. And first thing, I'm trying to check from Javier. No, we don't see comments or hand raises, so I think it was clear. And then there was a comment by Marcelo, but it's related to the previous presentations, and we'll make sure that co-facilitators will take in consideration what you're saying, and maybe you can also Tom and Michael, you may also take a look. And unless I don't think you're requesting for the floor. So given the time, we have 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes and 5 presentations, it's probably possible. And so we'll change the order of presentations again because we're getting late. So and then we'll leave the people in the house to the end, and we'll invite Roberta. I think it's Roberta and Francesco to present the informations on the energy data the IEA uses, and also I think on the collaboration they have with the Secretariat in preparing the basic information for the assessment reports. So I think it's Roberta taking the floor.
Thank you.
So Roberta, please.
Can you hear me? I see that I am...
Very well.
Yeah, okay, very good. So just to emphasize that we are very happy with Francesco to represent the International Energy Agency with this community, and in particular the cooperation of IEA with the NFCCC as well as IPCC is certainly very important in our overarching commitment to enhance clean energy transitions globally as an agency. And in particular, certainly looking at the statistical component, so the tracking component, which is very important at the IEA. So the objective is really to improve the quality of energy statistics together for climate reporting, in particular in your case, so that at national level and also internationally we have one common set of data that feed different policy reporting mechanisms. This is really an objective that we want to achieve, that we are moving towards through the cooperation with SCCC, that is very, very consolidated over time, that touches harmonization of methodologies for reporting, capacity building. Actually, we are planning a new joint training with the SCCC capacity building unit for the developing countries. We were a bit unfortunate in this transition period with the COVID. But today we are here particularly to focus on this comparison of data from the energy side that are submitted to the IEA with those that are included in the submission to the NFCCC, because we want to identify discrepancies and improve the data quality at the national level, because it's there when it's really important to work together. And the contribution of the lead reviewers will be very important, as well as the contribution of the compliance globally. So this is our overarching objective, and we are very happy to be here. I will let Francesco discuss the answers to the questions and invite him to other questions from the community if you didn't have a chance to ask the IEA. Thank you.
Hello everybody. Hope you can hear me well. As said, we received a couple of questions. The first one is about how can inventory compilers can find out who or which government department in the country has submitted data to the IEA. Well, first, more or less to emphasize a point covered by Roberta, we would just say that there would be a strong interest in having collaboration at the national level among the two institutions to produce and use a coherent set of energy data. So probably we would say that compilers are invited to get documentation on what energy data are produced and by whom in their country, so that they can set up a working process that can take this into account. Then, well, in particular to our sources are available in the online documentation of the IEA World Energy Balances. Maybe I can send the link through the chat later. And also, we are happy to be contacted by compilers wanting to get information on national sources if they don't have them. Also, since Roberta mentioned the point on the comparison process, IEA data sources are also state in the analysis and data comparison shared by the IEA with the UNFCCC, and we are happy that this information can be shared with reviewers at the time of review, so that the level of coherence and coordination among the two sets of data and institutions can be more easily assessed, and probably symmetrically we're happy that sources for GHG compilation are included maybe in the same analysis, so that we can also access to them. Second question, how can energy data from the IEA be accessed? Well, the IEA and the UNFCCC have an agreement so that data for specific countries can be shared at time of review with reviewers. Also, we're happy again to receive requests to share data for a specific country if a compiler does not have access to this information at the national level. And also, coming back to the points of the beginning, we would encourage compilers to establish good operational arrangements with national energy statistics producers, so that there is no need to access this kind of data through international sources. I think I covered the two questions. Happy to receive other questions from the floor.
Thank you, Francisco and Roberta. I don't see any comments, questions in the chat. So thank you again, and we're moving to the next presentation. Esther, your video is on, just for you to know. I don't know if you want to have that. You're the only person apart from me visible. So now I will have to give my time as a facilitator some time for I will have to invite Roman if he's available to do that. I have some other things to do, and then I will come back later on after a few presentations. Thank you. Roman?
Thank you, Victor. Good day, everyone. I would like to remind all of you that you have the slides and the recording of the presentations in the web page. So at this session, we're only covering the brief summary of those presentations and the answer received. So please go and check the materials, the slides and the recordings in the web. Next in the presentation that we are covering at this session is a presentation from Pedro Torres and Vlad Truska from the UNFCCC on the database of issues. It's a new module for the IVTR. Please, Vlad, whenever you're ready.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Roman, for the introduction, and I'm doing this also on behalf of my colleague Pedro. Probably you have interacted more with Pedro and Cristina on all the technical issues related to the VTR application. So what we are doing now is, as discussed at the last meeting of the lead reviewers, to make sure that we are improving the IVTR application. And to do that, we have started to improve the tool by adding a new module, which is on the review issues database. We have discussed that in the last period. You have more details in the presentation, and also considering the time, I will focus on the questions. If you have additional ones, you can just write them down into the chat. But before that, so the questions that we have received until now on this presentation, most of them were comments about the idea of adding this new module where the review issues will be presented in a easy manner and will facilitate the work of the expert review team instead of going in all the previous reports. So we will have all the information since 2015. And so the questions and the comments that we have received are mostly saying that this is a fantastic addition, that the presentation and the information about the module is really a great addition to the VTR, and the fact that by the time passing by, this tool is becoming more user-friendly, and of course this is something any manager will be happy to listen to. And then the idea that the tool will be handy for lessening the time spent by ERTs in tracking the status of previously raised issues. And we have two questions. The first one is related to the fact that the new module will consider the flexibility for developing countries to make it easily useful by reviewers. And as I have also explained in the session that we had in the morning, this new module is still for the current IVTR that is used in the current MRV process. So, of course, the moment we will be moving and starting developing the new tools for the Enhanced Transparency Framework, this will be taken into consideration. The second question was that if it's possible to add a link to relevant reports among the search results. The idea for this new module was exactly to make it easier for the experts, instead of opening 3 or 4 reports for the same previous reports for the same party, to have the possibility to search for the issues, exactly the issues that were included in the review reports. So not previous versions or unedited versions. So what the experts will find in this review issue database will be the issues that were included directly in the final reports. So this process is taking our time now. We are still working. This is why also in the presentation we mentioned that for sure this will be available for parties, for experts, so in the next year review cycle. So these were the questions and the comments that we have received. Of course, I'm very happy that this is welcomed by the lead reviewers, and we hope that we will raise to the expectation the moment when this new module is presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad, for the presentation. I don't think there are any further comments in the chat, so we move to the next presentation that summarizes the 2019 review process. So it's me as the presenter. I would like to, for the summary of the presentation, to reflect on two facts that in 2019 we needed more than 130 external experts, and we asked them to use 2 full-time weeks of their work, spread over several weeks, but around 2 full-time weeks to manage this process. So it's a very resource-intensive process. And the other slide refers to the publication dates of report. And there is a slide with 10 years of dates. And the track record has improved with the years, but in 2019 we are at about 60% publication rate by mid-April. Because review people, experts have changed, lead reviewers have changed, secretariat has changed, and party reporting has changed, and the process continues to be having difficulties improving significantly the timeliness. One could think that is the product doesn't fit the process, and another could think that the process does not fit the product. Insights and suggestions are welcome. Moving on to the questions received in the questionnaire, we had one from Betul Demirok. It was an observation that the delay in the publication does impact also the reporting by the parties, because parties are not able to include in their submissions how they have addressed the results of the review process. So the delay impacts not only the review, but also the reporting by the party. And as a result, the following review is also impacted because the review teams do not have that information in the annual submission and need to contact the parties and ask for that information. We had another observation from Julius Matsora about desk reviews. And he noted that desk reviews are less attractive or more difficult to attend, that's maybe the spin, because they are mainly due to time constraints when the expert is not traveling and connectivity in some countries. About the time constraint, one option could be spreading the process over more weeks. The problem with that is if we move it forward, or we spread it forward, then the publication it gets even later. And to move it earlier is tricky with experts in the northern hemisphere, because I think that is the summer holiday period for many of them. Also, we received questions from John Whartonson about he is interested in what is the most time-consuming part of the process, and if there is anything that the lead reviewers could do to increase the time available for the technical review, for the technical part. And my suggestion could be increasing the role in peer reviewing the drafts, so helping going through the experts' drafts and offering suggestions for improvement, and also increasing the role in monitoring the progress of the drafting and maybe encouraging experts that are falling behind to catch up or offer their help. He also asked if there is anything that the lead reviewers could do to reduce the time spent in the procedural part of the publication. I think that refers to the non-technical, and I can think only of the editing. Editing normally takes just a few days, so less than a week. However, if this impacts with the COP or with other busy periods for editors, it might take longer. We have dedicated editors for review reports, but if several reports come at the same time, even having one dedicated editor there is still a bottleneck. And the editing is also tricky because it happens at least twice for each report, so one before sending to the party, and another one before publication. So adding best cases, it adds about 1 week and a half to the publication process,
but in the worst case can add 3 or even 4 weeks to the process. So it's in a process that is 6, 7 months, 5, adding 1 month is a significant part. And finally, John also noted, suggested that if test reviews might not be attractive because the reviewers are worried that they will not be able to focus on the review if they are in their offices, and he wonders what solutions we can offer. I agree totally with the assessment, and as mentioned in a previous answer, if we spread the workload over small weeks, it does probably help the experts in test reviews fit that extra work with their normal work, but that means impacting the summer holidays for experts in the Northern Hemisphere or impacting the delay in the publication. Those were the questions received from the chat, from the questionnaire, and then this morning in the session we also received some comments in the chat. Justin suggested that improving pre-analysis of submissions, more efficient use of reads and the creation of reports, and simple sorted reports would help experts focus on the review and speed up the publication. I agree. The constraint we have here is in the guidelines do not offer a ranking of priority for issues, so determining what is important or not is subjective. I'm sure everyone has an idea what is important, what is not, and if lead reviewers could come to an agreement, that may help processing review reports faster. And then there was comments by Helen Plum and Paul Duffy and Rita that they support the Justin comment. And Paul Duffy also mentioned that there is a presentation already in the background materials here on the EU ESG review that focus on how simple reports can be processed quickly. That's the end of all the questions received in the questionnaire and in the chat this morning. I don't think there are any further questions in the chat, so we will move to the next presentation. Is by Claudio Dovale, is from the UNFCCC, following up on the conclusions and recommendations from the meeting last year, from the lead review, from the 16th meeting. Please, Claudia.
Thank you, Roman. Just a moment here because I need to share the presentation. Yeah, just a moment. Yeah. Yes? No? It's not coming. Okay, now. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. It's good to see everyone here in the virtual meeting, and hope to see you all next year in person. Well, my presentation is about follow-up to the conclusions and recommendations of the 16 lead review meetings, and it covers the recommendations and encouragements from lead reviewers and on how Secretariat, lead reviewers, and experts and parties have addressed them. Related to for training and review tools and IA, there are special presentation. I will not go through on this topic, so I will just comment on the remaining topics that related to coordination and planning. For instance, where we had we have a question from John Watterson related to invitations to the ERT. that we sent on July 2019, and his question was related to know that would be good to understand the reasons why send invitation, why 26% of the experts declined. The information that we got from the experts is in declining invitations. They provide a number of reasons, for example, not being available due to the previous commitments, or have a workload, or lack of financial resources. Some reviews were also not available on the scheduled review dates, for instance, and more information can be found on the documents that we present to the substack that I will copy and paste here in the chat to you all. So we are in a good shape, and related to improvements to the quality, efficiency, and consistency of reviews, we are in a good shape. So we have met all the recommendations and encouragements, operationalization of the review as well. I would just comment that related to the QC process, maybe I would like to highlight that more efforts maybe is needed for lead reviewers, expert, and the secretariat to conclude the QC process in the week after the review week. So there is room for improvement on this matter. Related to the checklist as well, checklist for the personalization and also for the desk review are ongoing. So for all other issues, we were able, all encouragements and recommendations were satisfactorily met. So that's I try to summarize in my 1 minute time. So I think I would like to thank you all. Yeah, and if there are any other questions, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. I don't think there are any further questions, so we move to the last presentation of the day. It's by Vitor, and is how the unit plans to organize the reviews in 2020. So please, Vitor.
So thank you very much. Claudia, the final presentation is on the floor, but I can...
I need your presentation now. This is complicated to find here.
Claudia, you're on. You're not muted. Button. I think I can start, and then you probably, if you watch the presentation, you will remember. And basically the presentation. I mean, Roman presented the what happened in 2019, and then you can move 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Claudia, 1 more. One more, and that's it. And the presentations on it contains information. Roman presented information on 2019, and then I'm going to present what we developed in 2020. And again, I don't think we need to know the reasons for the change in plan, for the slightly unusual plan that we have for this year. This is to accommodate the COVID-19 pandemic, trying to push a little bit further to the future, and also the fact that we have some new this SPs 52, they were postponed from June to October, and October is a review period, and also the weeks before. and so this is an unusual plan. So this plan was agreed with the parties. There was a common date, some requests by the parties, except one is still being considered, and so we're starting at the invitations for experts, and we send a question of availability, and that's the point, because we still have this plan, but the situations from the COVID is still not very clear, so we don't know if we're going to be able to send experts, to bring experts to Bonn, and also to send them to the parties because of travel restrictions and maybe accommodation restrictions, and the fact that some parties may not be experts from some parties may not be able to travel to others. And of course, when you do the reviews for a centralized and in-country review, one of the principles of the building the teams is that they have to be balanced regionally. And okay, yes. We'll see a comment, but I'll see it later. And then so because of that, we still have contingency plans, and I'm going to talk more about it in the response to the questions. But maybe I will ask Claudia 2 more slides. Another one. And so this is, we made a questionnaire because having the uncertainty if we could use if you go to in-country review or not, or to centralize, it requires that we take in consideration or give priority to those experts that do not mind or are willing to participate remotely, because that may happen for some parties. And so that's we made a questionnaire, and we obtain positive responses from about 164 experts, and that's close to what we would need to prepare the DRTs in accordance to the previous years. And so that's, of course, that could be a challenge for these years in organizing the review. And then in the response to the question, but I'll talk to this when responding to the question, so I will not duplicate what I'm saying. So, and then the presentation ends with a summary and what may be relevant to this. Can you move a little bit further? Yeah. Yes. Yes, Mo? Yes, and basically we see the main constraints of difficulties in organizing the reviews, in particular for this year, and there's particularly the lack of experts willing to participate in the remote, and also we continue to have some connection issues and access to parties that may become more important. And then the next slide is just to say that in spite of these plans, this adjusted plan and also the contingency plan, we developed the plans trying to be respectful of the guidelines and with a sense of continuity, so that reviews are affected as few as possible. And then meanwhile we also have prepared and developed new tools or updated tools like the template, the improvements in the VTR, improvements in the review tools, and this is with the support of Vlad teams, as you know very well, and this will allow us to have the review prepared. So Roman, if I can, I will move. Yes, okay. I'll move to the questions, to responding to the questions, and I received I don't know, maybe 12 questions, and I grouped them in 3 groups. First is about the organization of remote reviews, and there was a question to Menway. Is asking what is the experience from. I'm interpreting the question, but what was the the experience from different review process, BORs, etc. And then Julius I think it's supporting that the experts should take an extra effort or spare more time to the reviews, and then we have a proposal by Mauro, and on proposing it's innovative that you would get the essay if you book a hotel to take the review, and say Songli, and then is provisional guidelines. Well, starting with Songli, yes, we have developed the guidance. In particular, actually something that Javier started to develop, and then we are updating it because we have some plans for the remote, and for maybe to give priority to some areas of the scope in case we face difficulties in finding experts or the time, or maybe they extending a little bit the time, and that's and then we're thinking some possibilities. I'll describe it in the later questions about centralized or dedicated. Centralized to one party, we're going to see what to have it, and we're still thinking about it. And regarding Mauro's questions about the DSA, well, that's would be complicated because the DSA is when you travel, and according to the rules, and asking to have this will be not much different from asking the process to support your office. We've been discussing and considering other possibilities is if there is a connectivity problems in certain areas that experts from one region could meet in one region, and then they will have where the secretariat could ensure better connection. That's still in the infancy, but still a possibility, and because in that case, yes, DSA could apply, but the travel would need to apply as well, and it's not sure that the travel conditions are open in many countries. So Julius, yes, that's something maybe important, that the lead reviewers have the responsibility or the role that ensure that the reviews are in accordance to guidance and good qualities, and I think that's very good that Julius and the lead reviewers take in consideration this, because that's something that we should be concerned about, to have an extra effort to ensure the review. And then for Manuel, that's there are three sources of information. First, the questionnaire that we sent, and you have to be aware that some of the responses of the questionnaire, and they mentioned the connectivity, working from home, the fact that the family is at home, family issues, and this probably results is exactly from the experience with the BORs and the BRs. And the fact is that just after the cancellation of the lead reviews meeting in March, that it was a BOR that was going to happen in Bonn as a centralized review, and it has to be I think in 1 week. Shohong will correct me if I'm wrong. In 1 week, it was converted to a remote, and of course we have to have the agreement to experts that they would be part of it, and I think from the experiences it took a little longer, and the review officers participating, they report that they had to focus more on organization issues and maybe what logistic issues to ensure that the connection was good, more than substantive issues, and probably also for the co-leads. I think the BRs also, they have 2 sessions, if I'm not mistaken, and these they also have experience, of course, concerns about the connectivity, energy, and initial work. So this is the one type of issues. The other one is about the contingency plans for, I think it's all related to in-country reviews, and then we have questions from Kent, from Paul Duffy, from Sandro, and from Elsa, and they touch different aspects of the question. So Kent asks about if there is a plan C, or for in case there's not allowed to travel in country reviews. And then Paul asks if they could be organized in the same week. Sandro asks if it could be organized as centralized review. And then a question for Elsa, how we see the in-country review. So Kent, yes, we Kent, and yes, we have developed a plan, and we have a plan, and we're still improving on it. And on Paul, yes, I think originally, and Paul and Sandro, originally were thinking that because of the lack of sufficient experts, might be good to have centralized. Then we would pick some in-country reviews at the same time, if necessary, and then we took it together. It's a possibility, but then we also have to take in consideration that if you build the teams for the in-country review, and we're building them because we don't have any information yet that well, we know that the travel is not possible, but we don't have information that the travel will not be open. So we're still planning. It's quite difficult to plan that this way, but we're still planning, consider the 2 things could happen, and we're organizing the teams, and then it will be easier to do it, to review in the same week, both for the party, because the party, when we agree with the week with the party, we already took in consideration the holidays and school children's holidays and some things like that. So and then moving the reviews again would need an additional consultation. So it might be easier to move to the same week, or not to move to the same week, to keep it the same week, but do it remotely. And the second question from Elsa, how do you do it? And of course, maybe the parties are preparing the presentations, they're preparing for in-country review, and then what to do with that? Of course, some of them, they could just be converted to a centralized review, because remote in-country review, maybe it doesn't rhyme very well, and will be a little bit oxymoron. But anyway, so I think that would be difficult, but I don't know. We're still discussing this. There are some ideas that presentation still could be done, but I still don't think it's the same thing as an in-country review, and we could not call it as an in-country review. But still, we're still considering other things, and it may be up to the teams depending on case by case. On the last thing is about the number of issues. There was John and Songli, they noted in the presentation that some parties raised concerns about the excessive number of issues, and they're asking what is, if there was a common agreement of key issues. I think what is the number of issues, and how if the parties were really having such a large number. And actually, in the cases that we responded and the cases that were analyzed, it was not obvious that the party had number of issues were significantly higher than the others, or in some cases was not even higher than the others. I think it was just a sense. But what is important, and you maybe see it in the presentations in the blog tomorrow on operationalization of reviews, is that maybe there is a significant number of issues and in reports every year. I mean, we have an average in 2018. We have 116, and the range was 52 to 190 issues. And also the number of pages was around 50 pages on average, and then it could range from 30 to 68 pages. Of course, the number of pages has to do also with the format, with the tables. So I think I went by far above the time that I should do. I don't know if there's any questions. There are some questions. 2 questions. To David Kuntz, and yes, so Eduardo and Marcelo. Marcelo as well. Okay. Well, yeah. Marcelo was asking if you read that if the bureau to postpone SB 52 to later, well, to next year. Yes. It could be reviewed again. We're thinking that if you want to take care of the review to 2020, we cannot postpone it. So the contingency plan, I think you probably wrote this before what I explained, contingency plans will continue and with reviews with this year, and will be remotely. Of course, that's maybe something to consider if you do not have sufficient experts to take the review. And then Germany is not in the list. I think that's probably a mistake of the... Yeah, Germany is taking place this year, yes, that's for sure. Secondly, yes, that I can confirm. I don't know, maybe it was... maybe it was a mistake when building the graph, so I'm sorry for this. And then I think it's a suggestion from Eduardo. See, I think it's just for the name. Yes, that could be a possibility. And then, but we don't want to call it encounter review. And that could be a suggestion. And thank you very much. So I don't see any more. Yes. So. Roman, may I conclude the meeting? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Roman. And so I think in the end, this brings us to the end of the meeting. Some final comments. Can you, Claudia? Can you show the presentation? So. What we have to do, what we're going to do tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to go to the breakout groups. I don't know if we send in the list because we would like to have a balance. We're going to give you the links for all meetings, but yes. Sorry. Okay, so I think they were sent, and then yeah, the meeting, and then we can go to the end. To the very end. This one, and so so tomorrow we'll have the breakout groups, and then we give you check your group, and we encourage you not to swap and to move to one breakout group, because the idea is that the breakout groups they consider the papers and the presentations and come up with a set of elements that could be considered into the conclusions and recommendations, and this you'll be guided for 2 co-facilitators tomorrow. There is one on consistency, another one on the operationalizations, and the idea is that you discuss it tomorrow so well that you have final text, and this text will be so well considered that it will be easy to adopt in the final plenary. Of course, this will be provided to the co-facilitators, Mihail and Thelma. Yes, and then if you can go to the last one, please, Claudia. And then the last, no, not that. I think this is the conclusions and recommendations. So the materials for the conclusions and recommendations, we saw at least one suggestion coming from this meeting. It's contained in the chat. That the information, of course, Thelma and Mikhail, they're also reading this, but we're taking this in considerations. I don't know about the review tools and the training, and if there's anything. I mean, in case that you have any views, let us know. By tomorrow, we're going, and then by Wednesday morning, we'll give all the materials collected from the blogs and from here to the co-facilitators, and we will help them. They will prepare the draft conclusions, then will be shared with you, and then you'll have some time to. I think I don't know. We'll provide you later with that information by email, but I think a few hours to consult and provide your. Sir, yeah. One day to consult and then provide your comments, and then you have a session on the 2nd of July. I think it's only one in the agenda in this case. It's only one. I'm sorry, because it's important that we all be together, and then you're going to discuss under the leadership of the Michael and Thelma, and then we just give you a Friday. In case we need some consultation or not. But again, this is limited in time, and we have to finish on time, and we have to use our time very efficiently and be very pragmatic that we're dealing with a remote. And in case that's, and we also have to be aware that what's the sense of urgency. And this is urgent. Well, first, if you need to include this, it's good to have it in the review 2020. And also, of course, we're not going to repeat some of the presentations that we're going to do it again, unless you ask. And then it may be urgent to take on board some of the elements that discuss it today. So take this in considerations, and please, then I think we should be flexible and help Thelma and Mihail. And I think with this, I'll checking with my colleagues, but I think I'm not forgetting anything. Yes, I think we have recorded this session. Tomorrow, no, yeah, but we're recording, and then we probably will try to make it available, the link, not on our webpage. And so keep always aware of our webpage, and remember the webpage is kind of private to lead reviewers, so it's not, although it's a webpage, not public, because unless you know the link, you don't get it, so you don't get here, and so let's remember that. And so with that, if I don't see any comments, there is from Roman the web page, and I don't see any comments. I don't see Javier saying nothing. So I think thank you again very much for this time. We plan for 2 hours. We end the morning meeting with 2 hours 45 minutes, and we end it in the second sessions with 2:45 or 26 minutes. I think we're very consistent with this. I think you could not do better, Ms. Proof. So thank you very much, and see you tomorrow at Central European Time. It's 10 o'clock. And then we have 2 sessions, one at 10 and one 16, and one for breakout group and one for breakout 2. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Victor, thanks.
Thank you, bye.